Hi, I'm John Michael Garapi, and this is Popcorn Roulette. Each episode I invite a guest on my show, they suggest a movie, we get together and we talk about the movie. Today I have with me Rachel Vega. Rachel!
Hello.
Who are you?
I'm a wonderful person. And I do regular work, I'm just normal, and in my spare time I do the fun things like writing and watching movies and Barbie stuff. I love dioramas and I collect and create all kinds of crafty things.
That's great. We're going to link to some of the stuff so that people can actually see what you work on.
That would be really nice.
Yeah. Today you brought me here to talk about Lucky Number Slevin.
Yes!
Featuring Josh Harnett, Bruce Willis, Lucy Liu, Morgan Freeman, Ben Kingsley, and Stanley Tucci.
You can't go wrong with this cast.
And it's directed by Paul McGibbon. Why did you decide on Lucky Number Slevin for us to watch?
Well, I actually chose the movie because I like all of the actors in it, which is rare. I mean, I have a thing for Stanley Tucci. Lucy Liu's beautiful. It's so easy to watch. It's very easy on the eyes. The twists and turns in this movie are terrific. I found the individual relationships compelling, and I thought it was cleverly shot with lots of beautiful shots.
Do you remember the first time you ended up watching Lucky Number Slevin?
I do. I watched it with an ex-boyfriend, I want to say like a couple years after it came out. I think it was HBO or something. I don't know. I loved it. I sort of fell in love again with the twists and the different types of people, and then I got nostalgic for Aqueduct. I lived in New York for so long before I came here, and I just got nostalgic.
You immediately recognized the Brooklyn Bridge as soon as you saw it.
Right.
That establishing shot, I'm like, I'm pretty sure I'm looking at New York City. It's like Brooklyn Bridge. Oh, okay, we are on New York City. That's clearly where we are.
Obviously, yes.
Why don't we explain to people what the plot for Lucky Number Slevin is before we get too far into it?
I mean, there's a lot to discuss in this movie.
No, obviously, this is one of those movies that's like super confusing. We just want a synopsis. We can't get into the ins and outs.
The basic premise?
The basic premise.
A horse race gone bad for a family man, rival crime gangs, and a long con called the Kansas City Shuffle.
That sounds fine to me, to be honest with you. Part of this movie is this gigantic cast. I've noticed when we have like a cast like this, where like generally the idea is like you have one great actor, we're probably gonna end up with a good movie. You have two great actors, it's like you can see them dynamicism, they play against each other. Once you get like six great actors, something's gone terribly wrong. And like people are eating up their own scenes and the director's having a hard time with individual people. It sounds great until we put them all together and then it's a gigantic mess.
And then it's a mess, yeah.
Like, somehow this one works. Okay, let's put it this way. You gotta give the Academy Award to somebody for their work in this movie. Who do you give it to?
Morgan Freeman, purely for the scene at the end.
For the heel turn?
And it would be really hard for me to have to choose them. I only picked him because I took notes and I just thought his performance was so great.
Yeah.
I thought it was so great. This is, I think, the fourth time I've watched it since I first watched it. So
right.
I guess I'd choose him first and then Stanley Tucci and Bruce Willis or a tie. Josh Harnett is fun to watch, and I thought he had pretty good acting chops in this movie. I didn't think he was that great of an actor until it was all focused on him, and he's such a smart mouth. I love this character. I love this character.
Which actually brings up, like, are you familiar with the story of the Shmoo?
Are you familiar with the Shmoo? Yes, yes. You know, I had heard about a Shmoo. The story of the Shmoo is kind of creepy.
It's weird. It's this strange, like, I think Hanna-Barbera picked it up and he ended up meeting Fred and Barney in the Flintstones at one point in time.
Right, and then there was that one time where all that, you know, he was chosen over Mickey Mouse one year. The Shmoo. It's kind of a weird little parable, I guess.
Yeah, it's one of like Al Cap's designs, and the idea of like a creature that just is happy to be eaten. If you're hungry, it'll throw itself into a frying pan.
Jump happily into the frying pan. The whiskers make
like toothpicks, I think.
Toothpicks.
Yeah, so like the general idea is that Josh Hartnett's actually supposed to be the Shmoo in this story. And he's supposed to play, as far as the boss is concerned, he's a schlep, you know, a schlub. And I was just wondering, like, how well do you think Hartnett pulls off this idea of being a schlub? How well does he pull off the idea of being a mastermind later on?
Amazingly well.
Yeah.
I think it was so great. Can I just tell you some favorite scenes?
Oh yeah,
okay,
yeah. No,
so
I should warn our audience. We spoil movies, so as we go forward, this is a movie that gets spoiled. There's twists and turns in the plot. So if you haven't seen it and you kind of don't want things spoiled for you, then maybe you should go watch it first.
Yeah.
But you were saying.
Well, he has so many of those turns where he starts out pretty schlubby, and then he meets the boss and he meets Shlomo and then he gets on and when he comes back to see the boss and he's sitting there playing chess, that's where you see he's become a little more interesting. Another one of my favorite parts where he becomes even more interesting is not so much where he and Bruce Willis's character meet up, but it's when he takes the blackjack out of his pocket from behind at Shlomo's.
It's clear that he's pushing his agenda at this point. Like up until this point, he kind of looks like he's drifting through this entire movie, and here he is. Like he
allows himself to be talked into visiting Nick.
Yeah,
I mean,
this is his game, and it's only up at about this point that we actually quite get an idea of that being the case. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you're thinking there's something's weird now. Okay, I'm waiting for the twists. I'm waiting for the turns.
Yeah.
And then you see them, and you're just like, oh, yes, bring them on.
Yeah, I want to talk about real quickly about like what seems like a 7th or 8th character in here is the wallpaper. The wallpaper. That's gorgeous shots of wallpaper, and they change. I mean, I think they describe the characters for where that surround them. It
or the
certainly
people
brings
who are
out
in that
setting.
space.
It keeps us locked into a 70s atmosphere, even though we're in a modern time period. I know the director actually specifically, it makes the scenes between Sleven and Lindsay look kind of like this harmless, cheesy, fun thing when he's behind the flower wallpaper, but he also liked how when Slow and Elvis come into the room, it's kind of changed the entire feel and made all this wallpaper look almost silly in comparison to all the dramatic action that's happening. I see wallpaper in a movie, I almost always end up commenting because my mom wallpapered, so like it always strikes me, and I don't know how much of this is like coming across as like, why am I focusing on this stuff? But
no, because you're focusing on it because they're really quite powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, they're squares, they're repetitive. Is it repetitive? Is it repetitive? Yes, it's repetitive because everyone says everything twice. Did you notice?
Or
At
3
least
times
twice.
pending. Yeah. Well, I'm going to jump ahead to the negative review because I think it's better we get this out of the way so we can talk about it. And then we can move past it.
Negative review.
Tom Medley from TomMedley.com ends up writing that worse than the production itself are the macabre ending and the fact that its resolution is so morally reprehensible that it destroys what is an interesting story. This film not only winks at the inhumanity of Mr. Goodcat, a sociopathic assassin making him seem caring and compassionate, a ludicrous position, it justifies vigilante justice and brutal cold-blooded vengeance murder. The film is antithetical. No matter whether you enjoy this movie or not, I can't imagine anyone with any kind of moral compass walking out of it and not feeling at least vaguely uncomfortable with what they've just seen.
I didn't say I was comfortable with it. I thought it was a great movie.
Right,
I mean,
right.
Assassins are human too.
Yeah, they certainly are. But I think that's an interesting idea. Like, violence is an easy thing to actually blame a movie on. Almost every single time I dig for the negative review, I get somebody talking about how violent a movie is. It's going to end up happening. But I do think that, it's interesting that the boss heads are, such interesting and almost fun characters. And the idea of, knocking them off at the end almost seems like a shame. You know what I mean? How did you feel about the ending of this movie just in general? We obviously jumped.
The first time I saw it, I was saddened. But what goes around comes around. I mean, that's what the whole movie's about. What else was going to happen? He was going to allow them to go on with their creepy little relationship?
I mean, personally, I kind of feel like this movie was missing a third act in a sense. I felt like there should have been something after that, but that's a personal idea. I got this idea in my head that I would have liked to have seen, somehow the bosses broke out of whatever trap there was, and that now there was a chase going on, and then, or Goodcat started disagreeing with Sleven as to, Lucy Liu's character, and they went into something more like a shootout between the two of them.
That would have been interesting.
Yeah.
For me, I could see that the rabbi, he gave up. He said, he knew his end was near. He didn't even try. The boss tried a little harder.
Yeah.
But what bothered me at the end in that particular scene was where the rabbi always kept doubling everything, always kept doubling the price. I thought that was disgusting.
Yeah.
Disgusting. Come on. Regarding a third act, I think, the airport at the end is the third act, no?
It is. It is kind of well, they definitely sum things up.
I mean, she made me.
Yeah.
I had to. She made me.
Right.
So I was happy that they escaped, but then I'm a world-class assassin. You know.
You're not supposed
How
to
did you
admit it on
find us?
TV.
I'm a world-class assassin.
I just find it really interesting because there's an obvious divide between like where the critics sit on this movie and where the audience sits on this movie. I don't know if you actually noticed Rotten Tomatoes, but the score is like 51% critics liked this, and then like 87% audience liked it. This happens often. I don't think I've ever seen the divide this crazy.
Yeah.
I will say the critics seem to have they dwelled on the stupidest stuff oftentimes because Pulp Fiction just came out. So a lot of critics were just like, oh, you're just trying to be Pulp Fiction. You're trying to be clever. And I don't know what's wrong with being clever.
There's nothing wrong with being clever. I thought it was clever, and I thought it was not just clever, but fun. I mean, it was just desserts. I wasn't disappointed that they... I wasn't thrilled with murder.
Right.
But I thought it was a very neat way to wrap everything up.
You know, the director is disappointed with the name of the movie. He never liked it. He actually said that it was the worst film ever named and that he's learned to love with it like you love an ugly child.
Well, what could we name it? Yeah, the redheaded stepchild. Like, Lucky Numbers. Yeah, I mean, it is. What else could we name it?
I actually thought of this and I was thinking to myself, this could have easily been called Kansas City Shuffle.
Right. But isn't there another movie called Kansas City Shuffle?
Is there another movie
I
called
thought
Kansas
so.
City Shuffle? I didn't look it up. Maybe it is on IMDb. It's clearly blinking on the screen right now that I've edited in.
Well,
Like-
I mean, okay, a song, sure.
Yeah, no, obviously.
But-
a couple of them at this point because the
Yeah.
end song is Kansas City
Right,
Shuffle.
right.
So what is a Kansas City Shuffle? Do you know?
Good Cat says, and he does it so succinctly, he
Yeah.
just says everyone, you go one direction and they go the other.
Yeah.
What does he say exactly? He says,
He's like, they're looking left, you go right or something like that.
yeah, there was a time.
It was definitely
There
a
was
time.
That's when everyone looks right and you go left.
Yeah, no, if you dig into it, an actual Kansas City Shuffle is when a con man lets you know that he's conning you. Yeah, so like the idea being that like because you think you understand what the con is, you think you got one up on the con man, but
you
he's
don't.
got a
He's
bigger con.
Chess.
Yeah, it's moves within moves ultimately.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So many people involved in this one.
The performances really are
Really
just something
They're
spectacular.
really good.
I just love seeing Ben Kingsley work. Here's another thing I was actually
Not my
thinking.
favorite character of Ben Kingsley's, but
Right.
he did it really well.
If you wanted to tighten this movie, right, there's 3 characters I could see you removing.
Go on.
So I could see you trying to pull Lucy Liu's character. I could see you.
Yeah, she doesn't need to be there.
I can see you trying to pull Tucci's character, being like, we don't really need the cops there.
No.
And I could see someone getting
Oh,
rid
no,
of.
we need Tucci's character.
We need Tucci's character. So you'd rather get rid of Lucy Liu's character than Tucci?
Unfortunately.
Yeah.
I
I could also see somebody pulling the assassin Good Cat and just being like, we technically don't need him in this script.
You don't need to see him.
Well, you don't need to see him. You could also say that
He doesn't need a face
exists.
at all. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody has seen his face. He doesn't need to have a face. I like that it's Bruce Willis, but he doesn't need to.
So this is a hardball question of those 3 characters. Who do you say like, oh, we got to pull them out like completely? We don't actually see them anymore. The actor too.
Remove the whole character.
Remove the whole character.
Ooh. the choices are Lucy. The choices are
Lucy Liu, Bruce Willis, or Stanley Tucci.
I guess Stanley Tucci, but you gotta see the face. You gotta see the face at the end. I think it would lose. I think the story would lose something if we didn't have Lindsay. We wouldn't have that whole extra thing. there at the
Having
end.
somebody on the inside kind of playing the part of the audience certainly helps. I mean, Lucy's.
I don't think she needed to be the little investigator. She
Yeah.
could have just been the coroner, and that would have been fine. They did not need to keep that in there, but I mean, she's so likable. And their timing, everyone's timing it's so hard to pick someone to remove their timing. They're so good with timing.
It's actually kind of funny because if you look at the extra scenes, they're more comedy bits than anything else that got pulled. Like this almost feels like it was supposed to be a comedy
Like
that
a slap-
accidentally, yeah, it's more
slapstick.
slapstick and whatnot. And I'm glad they removed it because we ended up with something that had a bit more edge to it.
Yes, although if you only kept the comic scenes, it would be hilarious, but still it's clever.
Here's-
But you couldn't have the seriousness then.
Here's one more deleted scene that they actually deleted. I want to get your opinion on this. So
right.
one of the scenes that was actually filmed because they didn't know what they were going to do at the end. There was this thought process that Good Cat kills Lucy Liu because he's a professional and
Right.
that's what needs to be done.
Right.
And then they filmed another scene in which Sleven kills Lucy Liu, walks into the coroner's office, shoots her, and is regretful. But then you could see like Good Cat somewhere behind him.
He's
you
going
know?
to shoot him. He's going
Yeah.
to shoot Lucy anyway.
So he's kind of doing what he considers to be the kind thing. And I'm wondering, like, how do you think this movie would have worked if it had such a hard ending on it as opposed to the good end?
I think it would have left people more sad.
Yeah.
So we didn't need to have her at all to make it clean. But I think if they had put that scene in there instead of the way they handled it, I would have felt sad because I like the love story part.
Yeah.
You know, I think it adds another level of humanity to a harsh story, and it adds the humanity to a revenge story. I like that.
One of the reasons why this movie works in the first place is because Slevin lies to us earlier in the movie. The director happens to say that, like, the audience is smart and they'll understand that, like, when we're in black and white, that something's wrong and we're in lies and whatnot.
I barely even noticed the black and white.
I mean, me too.
There's so much to look at. You don't even the black and white. I don't think was really strong enough to have the audience naturally decide that it was something weird going on.
Yeah, I'll be honest, like, after the first time the movie went through, I was thinking back on the movie and I was still kind of confused because I didn't realize that those were supposed to be lies. Even after the entire movie had run itself through, I was like, so why did the movie have somebody punching him in the nose to get his wallet? Like, he couldn't have set that up? Like, I was still confused because I had thought that that was part of the truth of the movie, you know?
Yeah.
I'm still confused as to, like, if this was a legitimate move by a director, like, including shots like that, like...
Well, he lies throughout the entire thing.
Yeah, that's the thing.
So we just don't know what is a lie. So we can either take everything as lies, pick or choose, like the boss and the rabbi, hoping that what you want to be true is true and isn't, or believe everything to be false, which is way too much work.
I think one of the things is when you go and rewatch this, Slevin is not a good liar. It's kind of obvious he isn't.
He's a terrible liar. That's where the jalopy part comes in. That's why it makes him. Okay, so at first we see him, you know, in a towel and stuff, and then we see him getting all dressed up, and by the end he's looking spiffy, and he is it.
If he's such a terrible liar, why are we believing him? What actually happened there? Like, why did the characters believe
Because
him?
why would we think? Why would we think that he was lying to begin with? We need a baseline. So psychologically, we're not going to think that the first thing someone tells you is a lie or that would make everything really terrible. Which is great in a movie. Terrible in real life, but great in a movie.
It's just really kind of, it's funny because, like, Lucy Liu's character just, like, spots the plot hole in the script immediately when she's like, oh, but he didn't steal your watch. And it's like, oh, well, he probably didn't notice it. Well, he asked for the time.
Of course he asked. Of course he noticed that he asked for the time, which Slevin just totally ignores.
It's interesting to see what this movie blasts past and then what the audience just ends up accepting in the process.
Yeah. I mean, as it is, it's, you know, when you think about it, without having to even go toward the ending where everything is so clear because it's the same shots, just the other side, you just have all these wonderful ways that the plot could go, or that maybe you think you know Slevin. Nobody knows Slevin except for Good Cat. I think for Slevin, I don't know why they had to mention the anorexia.
Yeah.
But thank goodness he did, because that is some hard stuff to deal with. Wow. At the end, it does say on my notes are just like...
Did you end up reading through all the anorexia stuff? I did too. I was just like, oh no, it's a philosophy.
It's a philosophy. At first my sister was like, oh, well, I'm not so... she mentioned Stoic. And I said, well, no, it's Epicureanism. Now, let's get it right. She was like...
I have it somewhere in my notes, and I'm like, this is all well beyond me. But he treats it as if it's like he's got anorexia. The actual...
The words
you know
came
the same
up with
thing I do.
anorexia.
It actually, that's actually what the subtitles say.
That was so funny.
Because the person who was doing the subtitles didn't recognize the word.
Who has ever heard of anorexia?
Yeah. As if like I've got a disease and that makes me act the way I am, is how he's being, how I have anorexia.
You know, I did find myself thinking about it. Did he get the anorexia? Is it a PTSD thing? Probably.
I mean, maybe. I mean,
in the character. In my character of Sleven, that's how he gets the anorexia from...
You can write the script for the lost years, going like the when
very
between he was like
traumatic
10 to like the start of the movie.
Thing that happened in his childhood.
We're running low on time, but
Yes.
I got one more question for
Okay.
you. The rabbi at one point in time has to say that you are lucky so that I might realize that I am not. And I was wondering if you consider yourself a lucky person.
Yeah.
I mean, because he says the lucky and never realize they're lucky until it's too late.
Yes, but then again, I mean, philosophically, I've thought about these things a lot. I think most people would say, no, I'm so unlucky. Life is pretty easy.
Because I think some of this goes back to like the beginning of the movie where like the main character very early on just says he wants a front yard.
Right.
And the rabbi ends up talking about how he steps on like 2 green grasses or something
Yes,
like that.
I have that because I like that quote.
You got the quote from me?
I do. It says, kind of like, where Sleven says, kind of like a rabbi who would rather be a gangster, or a gangster who would rather be a rabbi. I mean, what is that? Some sort of grass is always greener on the other side of the fence thing? How do you justify being a rabbi and a gangster? I don't. I'm a bad man who doesn't waste time wondering what could have been when I am what could have been and could not have been. I live on both sides of the fence and my grass is always green. So that's huge. And for me, the rabbi's character was so dang pedantic, blah, 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 blah. But that, I live on both sides of the fence.
Do you think that's a healthy point of view
No,
to actually take?
no, that is so unhealthy. You cannot live on both sides of the fence. You got to pick one.
Yeah.
You got to pick one. And if you were on the different side of the fence at some point, that's fine, but you can't always be on both sides of the fence. You are going to split yourself right up the middle, and it's going to hurt.
Rachel, it was great having you on. I wish we could talk for like another half hour, but that's the way the show goes.
I know it. I had a great time too. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks for showing up, guys. If you want, subscribe and like this video, and that would help out a lot. Check out our other popcorn stuff. We're at popcornroulette.org. You can find all our other things that we're working on. I've also got a book I'm working on by the name of Winning Streak, Tales and Trivia of the 40 Most Popular Games. Thank you for coming on, Rachel.
Thank you for having me. I had a great time.
All right. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.